Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. I have done a lot of talking over my podcast about how many times I have moved to new cities. And if you haven't heard one of these podcasts, I'll just kind of say that I have moved 18 times in 26 years. Starting off when I moved from Miami to New York, and then met my husband, Andrew, and then we moved back to Miami, bought a house, and I have a podcast episode that talks about all these crazy moves. We've actually been in the house that we're renting currently because we're not buying until after the midterms elections are over next November to make sure that we can stay in this country. That's the real reason why. And then if we feel safe enough, we will actually buy a house in the Boston area. But, when I first moved to New York City, I just remember, or any city, I remember how intimidating it felt. Just trying to find my people, my rhythm, my sense of belonging. When I moved to New York City, I knew one person, and it was my friend Gina. And I had no gay friends at all. And I was starting this nonprofit job as an executive assistant, making $35,000 a year in New York City. $35,000 a year. I had a studio apartment on the fourth floor walk up. That was in a good neighborhood, Upper East Side, where most people seem to kind of start after college. And I, needed to find my people. And it took me time to find my community. And once I did, everything kind of changed. I met this guy named Trevor, and I can't even remember how we met. There was no apps back then. There was no Grindr or eHarmony or any of these dating apps. So maybe I met Trevor on America Online in a chat room, the same way I met my husband. But I don't know how we met. But we met outside of a Subway on 42nd Street, right on the south of Times Square. And it wasn't AOL because I didn't know what he looked like. So I don't know how I met him. And maybe it was one of these like gay phone lines where you meet people, who knows. But I remember him walking up the stairs coming out of the Subway, and I was waiting on the street for him. And when he walked up to me, he was not at all what I thought he looked like. He was a tall, thin, bald guy, a little nerdy looking. And I'm like, this is not, and he came up to me, he goes, "Are you Zach?" And there was a moment where I paused, where I almost said, "Nope, not Zach." But I didn't. I said, "I'm Zach." And I'm so glad I did, because Trevor ended up being a really good friend at the time. And he introduced me he just moved to the city also right before I did. And he ended up introducing me to so many of my good friends that I know today. So my friend Brady, who then I met Frank, who's Brady's husband. And then I've met one of my best friends, Greg, through, because of Trevor, and my friend Justin. And because of that one meeting with Trevor, I made a whole community, and I met all these people that I'm still friends with, a lot of them today. I'm not in touch with Trevor as much because he lives in Florida and there's some shit going on with him that I don't really know about, but I've heard about. But it's just amazing how one person can change your whole trajectory of your life. And that's what Trevor did for me. My guest today is Anabelle, and she knows kind of about a similar journey because she started her acting career in Chicago, and she made her way to LA, and she had to find her way in this competitive industry in LA of being an actor. And her story is about resilience and adaptability and creating your own opportunities within an industry that can sometimes be slow and sometimes you want to give up on it. But she has an amazing story, and I hope you enjoy Anabelle's story today. So thanks so much for listening, and enjoy the show. Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. I have a new guest today. Her name is Anabelle Ciancuillo. She is an actor and a producer, and she is coming from Chicago, now living in LA. So welcome to the show, Anabelle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So you started your career, let's just kind of start from the beginning. You started your career in Chicago, right? And you started on stage and you were at the Chicago City Theater and Shattered Globe Theater. Tell me how you got started there.
So when I was in middle school, high school, I was taking classes at Acting Studio Chicago. Sorry, my cat decided to join the conversation today. I was taking classes at the Acting Studio of Chicago, and I got really close with some of my teachers there, and a few of my teachers were also directing plays at other theaters, including State and Shattered Globe. And they actually pulled me from class and asked me to be a part of their production. And so that is
Cool.
kind of how I got into those productions, which was kind of awesome because when you're in high school or when you're young starting out, you kind of don't really know your footing yet to the industry.
Yeah.
So it was nice to have someone else kind of pluck me and kind of take me under their wing.
And was your family very supportive of you kind of going to that at that age, kind of a child actor in a way?
Yeah, my parents were. I was really lucky. Both of my parents were very supportive. They really were just the type of people that anything that made us happy, they were willing to just be there and support.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate in that regard.
How has kind of like being on stage, because I feel like being on stage in front of a live audience I feel like it's harder. I mean, I'm not an actor, but I feel like you're there, you can't make a mistake. So if you're doing something like on screen or on film, they can be edited, you can do another take. So tell me about that, how being on stage prepared you kind of for being on screen stuff.
Being on stage, it's very hard. They say there's, someone told me at one point that there's two kind of thoughts about a dramatic and a comedic actor. A dramatic actor is someone who is willing to bleed in front of an audience, and a comedic actor is someone who is willing to fall on their face.
Yeah.
And that's so true for stage. For stage, you've got to let everything go. You've got to put it all on the table. You've got to be willing to bleed in front of that audience. And that is so hard to do, to be vulnerable and to show up every night and to do it consistently over and over. But I think it's those things that, train us when we do it over and over so that when we get on camera, we've learned kind of how to tap into those emotions and tap into that level. And then we're able to kind of, I don't want to ever say like we minimize it because we're never minimizing it, but we refine it for camera, right? So on stage, you have to be willing to reach the back row, and on camera, you want to bring the camera to you. And it's they both have their difficulties, but I think being able to really let yourself live in these vulnerable circumstances and let yourself, fall on your face and bleed in front of an audience gives you somewhere to go and allows you to then create these dynamics on camera that are much more visceral and real for an audience to feel.
Yeah. And how have you done adapting coming from Chicago, Midwest to LA where it's so different? I mean, the people are so different. Like I know both cities well, and it's night and day, I think, the cities.
Yeah. It's very different. I think finding your community is definitely something that is talked about in LA, and it's so true. I think you really have to find your community of people, and whether that's in a class. I know I found a group of community in an acting class, and then I found a group of community from doing other hobbies, and I started doing like aerial and acrobatic stuff, and to kind of find another creative outlet to meet people. It's really about being able to kind of allow the cultural differences to morph you, because if you stay rigid in one area, you're gonna. I just stayed in my Chicago kind of lifestyle and being. I don't think I'd be able to take on the hardship and intensity that LA brings to the market, and kind of that go-getter attitude that you kind of need in LA.
Yeah. Do you like the people in LA though?
I do now.
Okay.
I think, LA's hard. Anyone you meet that comes from somewhere else will tell you
Yeah.
like, give it like a year to 18 months, which is wild because you hear everywhere else when you move there that
Yeah.
they're like, oh, give it a few weeks, you'll meet your best friend,
Yeah.
but it's true. LA is filled with people from everywhere. And
Yeah.
so you really have to find your people. And it took me a while to find my people. But now that I have my people, I love LA. I mean, I wouldn't trade LA, and I
So
definitely
no
will not
going
go back
back,
to Chicago.
no Chicago in the future then.
No Chicago for the future. I mean, unless I'm booking a job there or doing something. I love Chicago. It will always have a place in my heart. But I definitely enjoy the weather in LA a bit more.
And what about New York? If you had the right opportunity, would you move to New York since it's like the other Hollywood on the East Coast?
I actually spent a year in New York, and I enjoy New York. Each city has their perks. But I definitely I'm liking the West Coast.
Yeah.
Chicago and New York are very similar in that vein. They're a little different, but they have a lot of similarities. And yeah, if I can enjoy the warm weather for a little longer, I'll take that.
Yeah.
But I'll go
Yeah.
anywhere if, work permits.
Well, and now New York is like in the summer, it's miserable because the weather has been like unbearable from what I'm in Boston and it's been hot, but New York, they're having power outages in the subway because it's so hot. So you probably got the best of both worlds right now living in LA.
Yeah, it's great. Although we did have like a tsunami warning yesterday, which was, I think, a first
Oh, yeah.
in Santa Monica, which was a little wild. But, we're dealing with all sorts of elements over here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think the whole country and the whole world is dealing with shit right now. So I think it's fine. That's just where it is. It doesn't matter where you live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that I understood that you're a child of deaf adults, right? A CODA is what it's called. I've never heard of that. Can you kind of talk about what that means?
Yeah. So both of my parents are both profoundly deaf. And so I am a hearing child of two deaf adults. And so, whenever people ask me kind of what it was like growing up with deaf adults, my typical response is, I don't know. What was it like growing up with hearing adults?
Yeah.
It's hard to compare, something that you don't know.
Yeah.
What I do know is based on being around friends and that communication that was different with their parents versus my parents. I dealt with a lot of intense kind of growing up quickly as a kid. We were interpreting a lot for our parents when we were younger. And we also had to be willing to kind of defend ourselves because, there was a lot of challenges when you're a kid and, your parents are different than other kids' parents. And kids like to say things without, second thought. And so you'd often hear like, oh,
kids are bullies.
Yeah, kids are bullies, and you'd hear comments and your parents wouldn't hear them and they wouldn't be able to like step in and say something. So you'd have to advocate for yourself. And I was fortunate enough that I had a lot of really amazing teachers growing up that were able to advocate for me when those things happened. But yeah, it was hard. It definitely had some challenges, but I'm grateful for it because I think I recognize people's differences more so than others. And we all come from different walks of life. And I think it's important to embrace those differences.
So let's talk about a short film that you did called Don't Call Me Sweetheart Show.
So the Don't Call Me Sweetheart show is actually, it's actually a radio show. I was a radio personality.
Oh, it's a radio show. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. Are you still doing it?
No, it ended during COVID, unfortunately, but it was so much fun. And it was like old school radio. So it was play radio. It was like the weird circle. And so we would write scripts and we would do it on the radio, and it was very fun. And it was like every second and fourth Saturday of the month for a few years. And then, when COVID turned everything upside down, the Don't Call Me Sweetheart show also turned upside down.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had it in my notes that it was a short film. So that's I don't know that I Googled and that's what it came up. So sorry about that.
No worries.
So tell me what you're working on today, like, or what are you going for today? And I'd like to kind of talk about that whole process of how you prepare for a role as well.
Yeah. So right now, there's a few things that I'm working on. I wrapped the short film At Home with Kevin, and I'm waiting for post on that, which as an actor can sometimes be really frustrating because we like to use our footage for our reels, and when we don't get footage back in a timely manner, we're kind of just hanging out and waiting.
Yeah.
But that was a super fun shoot that I got to do with some friends, and I'm excited to see where that goes. The premise of it is a girl who is in love with a blow up like alien doll. So it's kind of
Oh,
like
really?
Lars and the Real Girl, and she
Yeah, yeah.
thinks it's her boyfriend. So it's kind of a play on that, but yeah. So that was super fun. And then the other two things that I'm working on, I have a friend writing a script for me right now, and we're working on a project so that we can shoot something and get that going. And so currently I'm in the build your own work of art type of
Yeah.
area of my life because, the industry has been a little up and down. And when it's a little down, you got to make your own art.
Yeah.
And then I recently just finished a photo shoot with a cinematographer, and we're trying to plan another photo shoot series to work on as well. So I kind of am creating a bunch of multimedia outlets of creativity.
What was the photo shoot? Was this the horror photo shoot I kind of read about?
So the horror photo shoot is the shoot that I produced.
Oh, cool. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I really wanted to do an old car photo shoot. I had this idea of doing like a Bonnie and Clyde type of like old car photo shoot. And then Halloween came around, and the Halloween prior, I had did like a small horror Halloween short film with friends. And I was talking to the cinematographer of that set, and him and I have worked together on sets before and have done some photo shoots before in spec series. And I was like, yeah, we should do another Halloween thing. And he was like, well, why don't you produce something? And I was like, that's not a bad idea. I was like, well, I had this idea for a Bonnie and Clyde. And he was like, well, make it happen. So the Bonnie and Clyde thing didn't happen, but I did take an old car. I found an old Bronco that I could rent. And then it just kind of came to life. I really was like, all right, I want to switch up the idea of a male axe murderer, and I want to cast a female, and it's going to be me, and we're going to, create this storyline of something has gone terribly wrong. And
Yeah.
this girl is an axe murderer. And you don't quite know if it's because she's crazy or because she's validated. And that's what I loved about it.
Cool. And you got to produce it too. So that's kind of cool to do that, right?
Yeah, I got to produce it, and I also actually did the special effects makeup for it.
Oh, awesome. So you are a West Coast spokesperson for Switch, which is an electric bike conversion kit. Tell me about that, because I have never heard of that before.
It's an electric bike company that is based in the UK, and it takes any bike you have, and they customize a front motor wheel, and you can turn it into an electric bike.
Cool.
And then they give you a battery pack and a pedal assist and all the things. So any bike that you have and you want it to be an electric bike, you buy this conversion kit and it will turn it electric.
That's pretty awesome.
And so I shot their West Coast US commercial with them, and then they've asked me to come on board and help anytime they are shooting in the US on the West Coast. And I also have one of their bikes.
What other brands besides Switch would you like to work for? Is there some brands that you would love to kind of be a spokesperson for, or that you're kind of oh, that'd be awesome to work for them? So,
that's a really good question.
I love skincare stuff. I would love to be a brand ambassador for skincare or something. So
I was going to say beauty products, definitely either a foundation or a lipstick or something that puts my face in Ulta would be amazing.
Yeah.
Those
Cool.
types of things are great. I mean, and so much fun. I was big in makeup when I was a kid, and I've always really enjoyed makeup. And there was one point in my life where I thought I was going to make my own makeup brand. So that didn't happen, but
You never know, though. It's
you never
never too
know.
late. You never know.
Right.
So you trained in arts and acrobatics, and I mean, tell me if I'm saying this wrong. Muay Thai. Am I saying that correctly?
Muay Thai.
So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
did that for over 10 years. So how does that kind of help you in your acting skills? Is that does that make you want to kind of do, like, if you were going to do a film that's more action oriented? Have you thought about that?
Yeah. I think that's why I've kind of been putting some focus in it. I got to a point a few years ago. I went to a circus show, and this is kind of when I started getting more into aerial. I had Muay Thai training already, and then I started getting into aerial. And I saw this show and I saw these performers, and I was like, oh, like this is a good idea. Like this is another if this is another way that I can perform, like I should learn this skill. Like I should learn something because I'm a performer at heart. My thing is I love being able to like perform and elicit an experience for an audience. That's where like my true like passion lies. And so I was like, what can I do to do more of that in any which way? And now it's kind of morphed into this idea of if I can have these skills, how can I make myself a more rounded actor so that I can be able to do my own stunts or be able to not be worried about doing a combat scene or having the ability to or wanting to produce something that is maybe more fight oriented because I have a background in that. So it's
Hmm.
definitely helped me have a lot more avenues of things that I can then audition for because I'm willing to kind of go that route.
Yeah. And when you're thinking about what would be your dream role to have? If you could have any role that you wanted, be in any movie you wanted upcoming or even in the past, like what would kind of that dream be? And also think about who would you want to work, who would be your dream kind of person to work with also?
Oh, I mean, I would love to work with Stanley Kubrick. Like that would be
Okay.
very cool. I would also, for me, I think there's production companies that I would love to like I would love to be in an A24 film. I would love
Okay,
to,
yep.
because I would love to do like something with neon. There's how like companies that I would love to work with. You know,
Yep.
it's hard for me to say which film I'd want to like be in or what project I want to be in because those projects I love because of the actors that are in them.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, you know, I can't do it justice. Like, of course, like I would love to have been in Game of Thrones and have done like, you know, a
Oh,
period
yeah.
piece. Like that would have been amazing.
Yeah. Game of
um,
Thrones would be amazing just because, like, it's it's so different every season too, and it's such high
yeah,
value production. Like, I think that would be really fun to do.
yeah. And then in like the other, you know, similar kind of thing, like a Stranger Things type of like casting and project would be super fun just because it's so different but fantasy realm and you know kind of chaotic and period-esque.
And do you prefer to be like would you prefer to be in a series, a short film, or like a full length movie if you had to pick?
I would definitely I think I would love to be in a feature. And then I would love to be a series regular. I think both of those
Yeah.
are are two things that live very deeply in me.
Cool. And so, I mean, you've adjusted very well to LA, obviously, and you've got your circle and you've got your community and stuff. There's a lot of people that move out there or are going to move out there in the future to pursue acting. What's some advice that you would kind of give somebody as they're coming out there? I mean, I think finding your people is a really good one, but besides that, what else would you kind of suggest to people?
Don't be discouraged. I think you know, in a city where everyone is doing what you're doing, it's really easy to be discouraged, to feel like, oh, like I don't have their luck, or like they've got more training than I do, or they've got more reps than I do. It's really easy to be discouraged. But if it's what you really want to do, be willing to like turn off the noise and to keep going and
Yeah.
find hobbies, find things that like spark that creativity inside of you, so that you're not letting that go and letting that part of you, not shine just because of everyone else around you.
Yeah. And do you have other friends that that are trying to make it in the Hollywood world or acting, and are they, I guess my question is like, you hear a lot of people that try for many years and all of a sudden they give up. But then you have people that keep trying, then all of a sudden they get their big break, and like this is like they're so happy that they did that. Is that, do you have friends that are kind of falling into that category where they're just like trying to make a decision? Oh, what should I do? Should I stay? Should I continue doing this, or do I just move on?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think all of us at some point or another, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think all of us at some point or another have those thoughts, because we could be
Yeah.
doing great for one period and then nothing. And it
Yeah.
can be very scary. And I think that's when you really need to like rely on the craft and community, take a class, kind of dive into it. And that way you're feeling like you're still doing it. I think
Yeah.
having a creative outlet, doing classes, having community where you can still act gives you something to look forward to when you're not booking.
Yeah. How important is kind of acting classes and those type of things? Or is that like a major piece of what you need to do?
I think so. I think you can never have too much of something. I mean, I guess you can have too much of, but I think you can always learn, right? You can always
Yeah.
brushing up on skills. I think there's always room for growth, especially in acting. And even when you're at the top, all those A-list celebrities, they have coaches, that they'll work with, and they're people that will come on to sets and things like that just to keep
Yeah.
them up and, fresh. But if you can, get in a class and keep working your craft, because like anything, like learning a language or anything, if you don't do it, you kind of lose it.
Yeah, totally. If somebody wants to find you and kind of follow your career, or they want to book you for something, how would they find you?
You can either find me on Instagram or via my website. My Instagram is Anabelle Ciancuillo, AnabelleChinch. And then my website is Anabelle Ciano @gmail.com.
Okay, cool. And for my listeners, either listening to this or if you're watching the video, I'll put that in the description. So if you want to reach out to Anabelle, you can do that. So thank you so much for being on. I'll definitely I'll follow you on Instagram and follow you, and can't wait to see what you do in the
Amazing.
future.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on here. It was great talking to you.
So everybody be sure to follow and send Anabelle a DM or say hello on Instagram to her. And thanks for listening. And be sure to leave a comment what you think about this episode. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Anabelle.
Bye. Bye.